くぞジェノサイカッタ
Hello everyone, what's happening? This is Forgo, and today we're going to talk about the balanced fighters. I've previously done videos about the attack fighters, about the defensive fighters, where they're relevant, where you can use them. So I thought we'd do one about the balanced fighters. Now, as always, most of my focus will always be on reviving Hell's Dungeon, because in this game mode is where you can get your experience bottles to level up your characters. So when we click on Kyo here and we go to level up, these experience bottles is in Reviving Hell's Dungeon is where you farm for these experience bottles. And speaking of Kyo, he's the first character we're going to talk about. He's a red balanced fighter, which is very, very important. You're going to need a red balanced team for Reviving Hell's Dungeon once you get above tier 40. You will need that team. Matter of fact, you need a red balanced team and a red defensive team. Kyo's got a great leadership. The red element fighter attack by 30% and critical rate by 11%. He also has super armor on him, which is really nice. Attack buff, critical rate buffs. But you will find Kyo can die pretty easy. And really, unfortunately, Reviving Hell's Dungeon is where he's the most relevant. I mean, yeah, he's good in Epic Quest and other things as well, but not really the greatest for Immortal Victor. Not really for a Elemental Typhoon, a Spider Robot. He hasn't been really that great for those game modes because he does do a grab. His PG animations are short. The special is okay, but it's still not that long. But he is an absolute must for Reviving Hell's Dungeon. So you really should build him just for that, and he's just cool. Gintoki is a collab fighter, so unfortunately a lot of people are going to have him. He's a blue balance. Gintoki isn't going to be really the greatest for Reviving Hell's Dungeon because you don't need a blue balanced team. You only need red and green. But Gintoki is insane for Immortal Victor. He's actually proving to be very useful in Elemental Typhoon. He's going to be really great against the Spider Robot because he has, PG gains. He's got 3 PG card. He has super long animations. He's got lots of bleed. He's just an insane character, to be perfectly honest. Then we have Nakaruru, who's a green balanced fighter, who you will absolutely need for your green balanced team for Reviving Hell's Dungeon. She's got a great leadership with the green element fire attack by 30%, power charge rate by 20%. She's got burn, bleed. She has super armor and damage immunity, which is great because whenever you're using her awakening skill, you can go back and forth between the super armor and immunity, and she pretty much won't take any damage at all. She's actually a really great character for Reviving Hell's Dungeon, but that unfortunately is about where it ends for Nakaruru. Yeah, she can put in work in Epic Quest and other game modes, but Reviving Hell's Dungeon is really why you want to build her. Rochi, unfortunately, he's a purple balanced fighter, so he's not really that relevant except for maybe Elemental Typhoon. He does have, because he will have the type advantage, he does have a 3 PG card that you can get for free in the Epic Quest, which is nice. His leadership's only going to benefit himself or Rochi Clan fighters. And, I don't use him really at all, to be perfectly honest, but he could prove to be useful against Elemental Typhoon. He does have a nice long animation on his 3 PG, but you won't need him for Reviving Hell's Dungeon. You won't need him at all. All you need for purple colors in Reviving Hell's Dungeon is attack and defense. So that kind of lowers his relevance, which is wild because he's the god of KOF. So we'll move on. And then we have Kami. Now, Kami is a collab fighter as well, but unfortunately, he's a yellow balanced fighter, which means he isn't very relevant at all for Reviving Hell's Dungeon. But he does have nice 3 PG animations. He's got the nice leadership, but he can die pretty easy. He has no immunity in the game modes like Spider Robot. I don't use him at all, honestly, for any of the game modes. I mean, in Team Relay Dungeon, the Yentama team can actually be really good. I mean, he's strong. He's got a lot of burn, but really it's PvP and specific situations in the game where he'd actually be really useful. Then we move along to Pretty Clone. Pretty Clone is an absolute must for your red balanced team for Reviving Hell's Dungeon. I'm going to eventually have to build this character. She does have a leadership, increased balance type fighters attack by 50%, HP by 10%. Really great leadership for the red balanced fighters. She has super armor. She combos really well. She's just going to be a really great character for RHD. But unfortunately, that's where it ends for old girl. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's other game modes, but I really kind of focused my attention on Reviving Hell's Dungeon again because of those experience bottles. It's not that she sucks or anything like that. It's just that's where she's really relevant, is in that game mode, which is a very good game mode to be relevant in. We're going to move along. Then we have Rock. Rock, unfortunately, is a blue balanced fighter. Terrific character, great character for PvP. 3 PG card, nice, decent animation, very fast, ignore guard. He's just a great character. Healing. He's really just an amazing character, but really I would probably build this guy more for PvP than I would anything else. You don't need him for Reviving Hell's Dungeon. Yeah, you'll need a blue team, but you only need blue attack and blue defense. He's only going to take you so far, which really lowers his importance. And honestly, I don't use him. Maybe some of you out there let me know, because he is a pretty strong character, but I don't use him for any of the other game modes at all. Nothing. We'll move along. Then we have Chrysalid. Chrysalid is another must. We have 3 red balance fess fighters. Actually, we have 4, but Elizabeth is collab, so some people might not have her or have him. But Chrysalid here is another great character for Reviving Hell's Dungeon because he is a red balance fighter. You will need that. He does have the super armor, which is really nice. That's a grab skill. But the thing that's really interesting about Chrysalid is he's known for being a really good PvP character because he's the comeback kid. Thanks to his core effects, he just obtains 35% power and resets cooldowns active skills when his HP is 4% or less. And that's probably going to happen in Reviving Hell's Dungeon when you get up in higher tiers. So you're going to be able to use your 5PG really quick. He's going to decrease his damage received. So he's still going to be a really great character, but that's kind of where it ends for Chrysalid. Good PvP character, but Reviving Hell's Dungeon is where it's at. So he's a must for your red balance team, in my opinion. Unless you have Elizabeth, then maybe you would take him out. Maybe not. It's really up to you. There's 4 red balance fest fighters. So Elizabeth here is another character that you could use for your red balance team if you have him. And Elizabeth, does have the decreased damage received, which you're going to be able to chain over and over and over when you're using the awakened skill, which is great. You'll keep this up all the time. Has the super armor, has stuns, which is very important, guard included. So every time they get stunned, you'll be able to break their guard and start beating the living hell out of them combo. Elizabeth actually can do really well in Reviving Hell's Dungeon, but that's kind of where it ends. Unfortunately, that's where he is going to be good. Katsura, green balanced fighter, amazing for your green balance team in Reviving Hell's Dungeon. And Katsura is actually damn good against Immortal Victor, really good against Spider Robot, because his PG gain is insane, similar to Nameless. It's just crazy, when he's doing critical hits. He's just going to be building his PG game, plus the Intama buffs here. I mean, gain the 20% power, the additional damage, so on and so on. He's just an amazing character. Long animation as 3 PG. He is insane. He's really, if you have this guy, he really should be on your teams when you're fighting Immortal Victor. And he is a must if you have him for your green balanced team. Katsura is amazing. Then we move along to Leona. Now, Leona, unfortunately, is a blue balanced fighter. Unfortunately, Leona really doesn't have much usefulness in the game. Because she's a blue balanced fighter, we need red and green currently in the game. For Reviving Hell's Dungeon, she isn't going to be very good against any of the game modes. Her animations aren't very long on her PGs. She does have super armor, but again, she's only going to go so far in Reviving Hell's Dungeon. So unfortunately, yeah, poor Leona just isn't there. And then we'll move along. Then we have John Cena. Now, John Cena is a purple fighter. He would have the type advantage against Elemental Typhoon. However, the problem with John is he is a top-tier PvP character. Top tier. But when it comes to the PvE game modes, he just doesn't do that good because you can't really utilize his 3 PG card because it does a grab. It'll immediately cancel. You're not stalling the timer. So it actually hurts you in a lot of game modes. You'll get the damage from it, but you're not really gonna he's stalling the timer, which is what you want to do in a lot of situations. He's not going to be good for reviving Hell's Dungeon because he is a purple balanced fighter, but he is a must-have for PvP. Absolutely, John is insane. Then you have Kula. Kula isn't very good for reviving Hell's Dungeon, again, because she's a purple fighter. But Kula is insane for Elemental Typhoon. She is a must-have because of her freeze and chill damage. She is amazing. You can put Pretty Zero in the leadership and Nameless, who's a purple fighter as well, and then Kula on your first team, and put Zhongfei cards on Pretty Zero and Nameless, and just have max cooldown cards on her, 2 cooldown cards on her, and you can do a lot of damage to an Elemental Typhoon. She won't be very relevant in reviving Hell's Dungeon, but she is relevant for Elemental Typhoon, and she is a good PvP character. Then you have Elizabeth. Elizabeth is actually really great also for Elemental Typhoon because she does have the freeze and chill, and she has hyper armor, but she's also a green balanced fighter. You absolutely could use her for a green balanced team. In fact, I'm gonna have to build her for sure to use her for my green balanced team. She's got the increased balance high fires attack by 30%, critical rate by 9%. She's got the core effects. She's got the core effect where she gets the heal, which is nice, a little increased attack. She really is a great character, an absolute must for your reviving Hell's Dungeon team, and she would be pretty good against Elemental Typhoon as well. She does have okay animations as far as the length of them on her PGs. Then we scroll down a little bit, then we go all the way over to Terry. Terry, unfortunately, is a yellow balanced fighter. And unfortunately, Terry, I love Terry, but he's just not relevant for reviving Hell's Dungeon, again, because you only need red balance and green balance. That's it. And he's not very good at all against the Immortal Victor, Elemental Typhoon. He's just not good against those game modes. He's a solid character. He's a decent PvP character. And he's a good support for other characters on his team because of his core effect. Increase all team members' attack by 20% and movement speed by 20% when power is 1 or more, which is great. But he's only going to go so far in reviving Hell's Dungeon, which is a bummer. I built him up to 3 stars. And then when I learned that I wasn't going to be able to use him, I was like, damn it, that sucks. Because I love Terry. What a bummer. Then you have Orochi Chris. Orochi Chris has the same problem as Terry. He's a yellow balanced fighter. He's not going to be good at all in reviving Hell's Dungeon because he's only going to go so far. He's not good against any of the other game modes. He can die pretty easy. Unfortunately, Chris is really just kind of low on the totem pole when it comes to the fess character. So for your red balanced team, you definitely want to have Kyo, Pretty Clone, Chrysalid, or Elizabeth. Definitely Kyo and Pretty Clone, and then one of these two, depending on whether or not you have Elizabeth or not, or just whatever you choose or whatever memories you have for the characters. As far as green balance, Nakaru is going to be an absolute must. Katsura, if you have him, which I know some people don't, and that's a real bummer. Elizabeth is an absolute must. So everybody's going to be able to get her, which is great. So for some people, as far as fess characters, they're only going to be able to get 2 green balanced fighters, which is a bummer. So an honorable mention would be Hijikata, who's a red balanced fighter. Great for your red balanced team if you have this guy. He does have hyper armor on a freaking 8.5 second cooldown with max skill cooldown. He's going to have this up pretty much all the time. His survivability will be absolutely insane. So he would be a terrific character to have. You could also have, make sure I don't skip anybody, kind of scroll down a little bit slowly here. You could also use AG for your green fighters. So what I would recommend is you build AG because you do get him for free in the game. You can build this guy. He's a green balanced fighter. He does have tons of bleed. He also has super armor. You might have to bring a healing striker in for him, but he is a balanced fighter, so he will have some good stats. But he would be really great for the reviving Hell's Dungeon for your team. So you could use AG, you could use Elizabeth, and you could use Nakaruru for your green balanced team. And AG, even though he isn't a a fess character. He is a cost 60. He will have good damage. You will be able to use him. So that's something that I would recommend. If you don't have AG, maybe you could go ahead and use False Orochi. False Orochi is also a green bounce fighter who you can get for free in the Epic Quest. You can also get a free 3PG card for this guy in the Epic Quest. He actually would be really great for it. He costs 59. He'll do decent damage. He does have the cores with his Petrify. He does have super armor. So he's also an option that you could use for your green balanced team. So you have enough red balanced fighters in the fess characters, and really you want as many fess versions as you can, because you want as many fess as you can, because they are the strongest of the strong. Once you get so high in those tiers in Reviving Hell's Dungeon, you're going to find that having fess characters would be better. They are better. That's just a simple fact of it. But AG and False Orochi are options because we only have 2 green balanced fighters. Other than having Katsura, if you have Katsura, then you're going to be able to have 3 fess fighters. So hopefully this will help some of you out there. So let me know in the comments if I missed anybody, and let me know how you're doing in the game, what cards you've gotten, what characters you've gotten, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Y'all take care and have a good one.